Give me a second to make sure we live on YouTube and rely on the TV. Okay. Thank you, Prof. Marta, friend of us. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa syukrillah wa la hawla wa la quwata illa billahil alil azim. We are on the third meeting, online meeting of our discussions. And then tonight, our specific topic, it's about cultivate the love of wisdom, tradition, and interdisciplinary. For those who are Muslim, I invite you to recite Basmalah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, to start our discussion for tonight. And then let me read introductions that Prof. Marta wrote about the topic. She will talk about what kind of model of education is needed to cultivate the love of wisdom. Certainly, such as education would be interdisciplinary. The tradition that have had this kind of education in the past were labeled religions by colonizing Westerners who use religion as pejorative term, indicating a less advanced science-based cultures. Since Indonesia respect many wisdom tradition, Prof. Marta will talk about how Indonesian school could educate children from a young age in the love of wisdom that combines the wisdom of Confucius, Buddha, Jesus, Socrates, Muhammad, a Hindu guru, and animist nature-based tradition. She would include an interview that she had with a colleague in the education faculty in Yogyakarta. Without reading Aristotle, she told us about the educations he received in his a small village in Java. After the interview in the paper, Prof. Marta will explain how he was habituated to exercise all of Aristotle's virtue. My colleague, was Muslim, but this kind of Islam, the villager practice include animist and Hindu habits. This is the introduction that Prof. Marta already wrote about, and then through our discussion tonight will come up with about humanism. The title here, Ancient Greek Spiritual Humanism, Educating the Human Soul for Wisdom and for Citizenship in Democratic Society. Without further ado, I would like to invite Prof. Marta back to come up with the presentation, and after presentations, we will have a Q&A. Thankfully, and time is yours, Prof.
Okay, so I was thinking about the question last time, and what I am thinking is that we don't want to go back to Aristotle. We don't want to idealize the past, or we don't want to go back to the Enlightenment either. So we need to move forward. It's just that we can gain wisdom from everything that's from the civilizations of the past and create something new. So that's the point. Also, we need to get over colonialism, and that's not easy. It's still going on in the intellectual community, even though there's a lot of denial. But so I'm only providing all the insights we can get from the past, and then also Indonesians can include the insights from their culture, and we synthesize them into a new point of view, and offer that as one model of democracy, one way of thinking about life and education alongside of others, you know, the Chinese, the Europeans, the Americans. So that's my goal. So Aristotle was a doctor's son, and his goal is to educate children so that when they're adults, they're flourishing adults in a very biological way. They have all these natural capacities, and they need to be actively exercising them from when they're very young. So self-control, and children are, I don't know if you could say they're impulsive, they just are not reflective, let's put it that way. So they start out just learning by imitation, and then gradually they can figure out why their parents had them doing this and that, and that's character development. So the virtues are always defined as a middle ground between two extremes. There's no one rule or principle. We have to talk to each other, and we have to talk with ourselves when we make decisions. And that's very consistent with Panchasila, I think, wisdom through deliberation. So that the most basic drives are hunger, thirst, and then, and in relation to that drive, you can eat too much or too little. You can eat the wrong thing. You can eat in the wrong way at the wrong time. And so I think it's kind of common sense. We disagree on some of the details, but it's clear that there are extremes. And then within the middle ground, there's a lot of variability. So the culture does promote. It rewards certain behaviors and punishes others. And the Greeks thought that greed was the drive that ruined civilizations, wanting more than you need and wanting more than your share. This is very different from the neo liberals, is that what they're called? Who somehow thinks greed is going to drive our economic system and make everybody prosperous. That does not work, because money sticks to money, and then you lose your middle class. So it is crazy to read Aristotle and think, wow, how did he know? So that's a big problem right now. The international food system is corrupted by greed, and I'm not gonna, you can have you can have the PowerPoint and look at it more specifically. I think you already know the way that greed exploits our natural drives. We take pleasure in salt and fat because often our ancestors didn't have enough. But now that's not true. And so many foods have, processed foods don't have anything like a natural amount of salt or fat. We have saturated fats. It's all pretty crazy. All right, so then people get sick, and the healthcare system is also motivated by greed. And in the US, 75% of the costs are unnecessary because people eat the wrong things and they don't exercise, and it's just costing us a lot of money. It's preventing us from educating the next generation. It's preventing us from focusing on sustainability, and it's really a problem. There's also 4 types of character in relation to each of the virtues. Too much, self-indulgent. Some people don't even know what foods are healthy. So that's one kind of self-indulgent. The other one is people know, but they don't want to do it, and they do it anyway. They overeat anyway. That's called morally weak. Morally strong is they don't really want to eat right, but they have self-control. And then the wise person knows what's best, takes pleasure in eating the right amount as part of a strong character. So they're not internally divided with themselves. They actually want to do what's right. So they have integrity. So this is true in relation to all the virtues. Courage is another very basic one because we're vulnerable, we're aware that we're vulnerable, and so courage is the ability to face situations involving fear and doing it for the right reason in the right way and not overreacting or underreacting. So there's physical fears. There's also fears, cultural fears, fear of not succeeding in the economic system, fear of losing your friends, losing your status. And sometimes people do things they don't want to do because they don't want to lose their job, or they don't want to lose the respect that they can get and get a promotion, or they just don't want to lose friends. And so they compromise, they do things they know are wrong because they're too afraid, or other people are too aggressive, too competitive, and it's excess and it does a lot of damage. Other virtues are generosity. This is really important because you can't have a good society unless people live moderately, they have enough for themselves, and then they give to others, so that builds up trust and goodwill between people. So you have these friendship bonds, and we need a lot of friendships in order to flourish because we depend on each other so much for so many things. Magnanimity is if you're wealthy and you're generous. So today there's people like Bill Gates, and he's trying to use his money to go to carbon zero, and other billionaires, the Koch brothers, are protecting their wealth, which they got from gas and oil, and they pay for political campaigns. And when the candidates win, they make laws that prevent us from moving toward sustainability. And this is a huge problem in our society. Rational ambition, find out what you can do well, that you like to do, and you think makes a good contribution to flourishing in your society. Get the education and credentials, take the job, and use the power you have for the well-being of others. So this is what college students should be thinking about. And then honor, going over and above the demands of your various social roles in order to create a high quality of life. Rational anger, it's fine to be angry, but you have to be angry for the right reason in the right way. And people tend to overreact. Being sociable, getting along with people, putting up with minor injustices because social stability matters more than nitpicking. You don't want to be small-minded. You want to be great-souled. So friendships are really important, and all sorts of friendships. People based on utility, the cashier at the store, your doctor, you should always bond with them and care about creating a high quality of life in your society. Know what you know and what you don't know. So arrogance is a terrible problem because people stop trying to learn. They won't admit they don't know. And this is a problem. The political virtues are the ones regulated by the laws or the activity of making laws. Those are the social networks between people who don't know each other, right? A lot of the other ones are friends, extended family, doctor, people you know. But these are the ones where you have to think about what would the effect of this law be on every citizen? Would it be good or bad? And how should judges apply the laws? And how should they enforce the laws? Legislation, knowing how to make laws that weave the rich and poor together, create a stable middle class. And, we have a lot of arguments about this. Some people think just giving wealthy people cutting their taxes and letting them create products and raising the gross domestic product is the way for everyone to flourish. Other people say, no, people need education and healthcare, and the rich will they'll concentrate their wealth and everybody will suffer. But people who want taxes cut have their reasons. So you can't just assume they're greedy in their minds. They really think it's the best thing to do. All right. The laws are concerned with punishing people who break the laws. So you have to have good laws. You don't punish too much or too little. And in the judges and the juries apply those laws in particular cases. And sometimes people disagree on whether the punishment was too much or too little. And then also the system of prisons and jails, how long you were sentenced, and what are the conditions like. And do you focus on rehabilitation rather than being punitive? The intellectual virtues, these are the ones that we normally associate with education, but there are people, obviously people can be really good at these virtues, but not necessarily have strong moral character. So the Koch brothers are one example, but there's lots of them. They changed too. Bill Gates was very greedy for a long time, and then all of a sudden he started the Gates Foundation. So, and then he didn't start with carbon zero. He started with malaria and things like that. Now, Mark Zuckerberg and his wife have a huge, they donated a lot of money, but their main focus is to cure all diseases. But if you don't care about sustainability, I mean, if you don't clean up the air, children are going to get asthma. You're not going to be able to solve asthma if you don't solve air pollution. And I just do not understand why they think knowledge alone is going to save us. It just blows my mind that they're not. The number one issue is climate change. And then you worry about diseases. All because of climate change, all these diseases are going to erupt because it's going to get warmer in all these places. All right, so I don't understand how their thinking works. I just listened to an interview. They're completely unapologetic about it. It doesn't seem to occur to them that there's a counter argument, and the interviewer didn't suggest it either. So I don't know, just don't understand it. So practical wisdom is that you have all these virtues, and then you have to make a decision. And so your object of wish is always to maximize human flourishing. The object of choice, which option? What are the real options we have? And which one is best and why? So a person who has this kind of wisdom is going to bring in experts so that they are informed. And at the end of the day, they have to make a particular decision. And they can look back. They should look back and decide, did that work or not? If it worked, why? How can we do it again? If it didn't work, why? Let's try to improve. So it's this constant process of self-examination, the examination of others, and developing a history of practical wisdom. Okay, everybody wants world peace, but you get up in the morning and you decide, well, am I going to go to college or not? Am I going to take this course or that class? I mean, each of our options are a long, long way from world peace, but we should always keep it in mind, human flourishing. And then we should learn from what we thought would promote flourishing, and maybe that was a mistake. It's just hard. So a good person will seek out opportunities to exercise these virtues. They'll volunteer for things, they'll step up, they'll, they'll just keep going. And then Panchasila, I think the leaders in those traditions, when I read about them, I have a particular book that I think has that agenda underneath. He doesn't really say it, but he describes these characters and they all are very similar. So, so to be a good Indonesian citizen, I think you should know Aristotle's virtues, but you apply them in our day. So Aristotle was sexist, and that's annoying to me, but I think his definitions are true. It's just how you apply them that he wasn't inclusive. Aristotle was also used to justify colonialism because the Westerners thought they were Aristotelian, and they also thought the people in the indigenous people where they were incapable of it, and they were wrong. So I don't think we should throw out the baby with the bathwater. I think that all of you as Muslims do that because you could, talk about the history of Islam, and you can pick out this or that. You can quote from the Quran. You can come up with, substantially different interpretations or a way of life that you think is truly Muslim. Okay, humanitarianism, this is the Greek view of humanity, unity and diversity. Clearly, there's a lot of different sacred passions, and we should respect all of them. We have to make decisions through deliberation. We have to talk to each other, talk to experts, figure out the options. And then the social contract. Leaders have a duty to educate citizens, give them health care. And then when they get it, they have an obligation to give back. So the humanities disciplines have traditionally been where students study these ideas of virtue and justice and truth. Justice is rule for the benefit of the ruled, but these disciplines are in decline in the US. They're being replaced by STEM, as if knowledge alone will enable us to flourish. And that's Mark Zuckerberg and his wife are clear cases of that. Bill Gates also started out, his first goal in his philanthropy was to give every kid in Africa a computer. And then he found out, well, they're dying of malaria. So I think maybe we should start at the beginning, and their mothers need birth control, So that's kind of jumping ahead a little bit. So that's always a problem for people trained just in the STEM. There probably are already a lot of ways these lessons are taught, K through 12 and colleges in Indonesia. I don't really know, but I think it could work. And I wish you luck in, pursuing it. And interfaith dialogue, I think, is important. And also just consulting people in the education department of Ministry of Education, Ministry of Religious Affairs can talk to each other. The United Nations also has a model. The capabilities model is very in tune with Aristotle's model, and Martha Nussbaum has written extensively about that, and I have also written extensively about that. And Indonesia is a prominent supporter of the United Nations. They always have a representative at every UN event. They're also a major supporter of sustainability. So then when I work with you, and this is for next time, I would like, if you want to work with me on journal articles, I want to start with the question, how does Panchasila drive your way of life, your choice to be a college teacher, your area of expertise, and how would you like your scholarship to explicitly or implicitly promote the values and culture of Indonesia and your understanding of Pancasila. And so, you know, I don't want to force it on you. It's up to you. It's really my colleagues who drive it. I'm not a professor. I don't know if this presentation sounds very professorial, but in the end, I really want a dialogue. And so that would be my goal. All right, so that's it.
Thank you, Prof. Beck, for the kind explanations about somehow the outsider view about the Pancasila and the interfaith. And then I learned that some kind in US, there is Muslim Christians understanding the center in the university. And then I learned another center in UK. That's why I am trying my best to do the same one, but starting not from the structural one, but coming from the cultural, and then try to extend the contact, making contact with students with different religions, with the because I grow with the Himpunan Mahasiswa Islam, the Association of Islamic Student University, one of the student university here in Indonesia. And then right now, I try my best to have extension, a contact to another student organizations that it might be can come up with the idea of kind for example that we can have the for example interfaith dialogue or students like kind of the interfaith organization or network. Yeah. The second, through your presentation, it might be I could agree for your suggestions that we will have the journal or article in a journals about the Pancasila and the way of life in Indonesian higher educations, yeah, and the same times for us lectures or college, and then the understanding of Pancasila. And then maybe would you like to explain more about how your experience through the life here in Indonesia, and how do you see the Pancasila itself? Okay, Prof. Beck.
Okay. Well, I think when I've always worked with my colleagues, they're very good at not getting angry about things. So I know that they tell me stories, right? So Muhammad, there's a story about Muhammad and his ability to be angry for the right reason in the right way and not to get too angry. And so, or self-control or courage, standing up to the authorities, even when it risks, he's taking a big risk. So that was nice, right? My colleagues would tell the stories that impressed them the most growing up, and that, like I said, my colleague who interviewed, I had the interview and I was thinking, wow, this is so Aristotelian. So I felt like, yeah, maybe some colleagues would like to pursue that further. And I could integrate what I know. Plus, I'm trying to promote democracy, and you are too, right? So the Greeks supposedly valued democracy, but then they got greedy and they got power hungry and they lost it. So the Greek story of Greek civilization is also a warning that you really can lose it. And recently, the last few years, people have realized democracies are a lot more frail than they thought. I didn't ever think they were as robust as most people thought. I was very aware because I live in rural Arkansas, and the people in my community, I don't know. I think they are kind of looking for a strong man, but maybe not. It just, there's people who act like Trump will save them, and that's not democratic. But, it happens everywhere. It happened in Athens. So if my colleagues want to work with me and we can show how these patterns play out in human history or in different countries now, I think it's what I have to offer, right? If the colleagues care about the United Nations, and that's what they really want to write about, Panchasila and the UN, that's great. If they want to write about Panchasila and systems thinking, that's great. I've published on that. I did have a colleague in education who had studied Whitehead, and I had written about Whitehead and Aristotle and systems thinking. So there's a lot of possibilities.
Thank you, Prof. Beck. I would like to show how the idea that come up after 3 discussions of us. Yeah, I would like to share here. Yeah, this is the idea, Pancasila and ancient Greek from the past to the future directions. It might be we can edit together this edit volume and publish here in Indonesia. And then somehow I will try my best to invite friends of us to write together here. And then I already I will stop this one, and then I already capture these questions, and this is maybe initial questions for us to come up with the research like this one. Yeah, the questions like how does Pancasila drive your way of life? Your choice to be a colleague, teacher in your area of expertise, and how would you like your scholarship to explicitly or implicitly promote the values and culture of Indonesia and your understanding of Pancasila. So this is the initial questions that we can come up for the somehow the book. And then I already wrote a small book actually during the celebration of Pancasila in the month of June. Yeah, it is about Pancasila, religions, and somehow I will bring one copy of the book. Fortunately, it is in Bahasa Indonesia. I will bring one copy of the book and hands over to you to see what I did for the Pancasila discourse. The second one, it might be a good one to maintain these communications since there is failures of ancient Greek that we can adapt, and mostly like say I already mentioned about the student associations that actually there is a plenty works or plenty discussions about the ancient Greek and the philosophy. It might be a good one. And what do you think about this?
Sounds good, but yeah, I mean, if they don't know English, it's a problem, but
sure,
and then you could publish essays in Indonesian, and there might be a few that the people know English and they would submit it to the journal that I'm, I'm the editor of. But we can work together on a lot of things.
Yeah, it might be the second or the further step to send to the journal that you edit. But for the early stage, maybe I can come up with the English versions of the book here, and we can publish here in Indonesia. And then somehow we have the language editor in the National Library of Indonesia. I will start to communicate with them how that we can go further for the publication. Since last year, we have a good publication to celebrate the G20 of the host country of Indonesia here, and then the National Library of Indonesia help us about the translations about this one, and then it might be a good one to publish this book through the National Library, and it might be another one. Thank you, Prof. Beck, for three online meetings. All the video that you can see on the YouTube, and then this is the live one. The end of our meeting for this evening tonight. Would you like to say some things as the closing remarks, Beck?
Well, I hope that people can understand the connection between all three of them. It's different ways of explaining, moral education. One of them is telling stories and purgative stories of extreme. And then another one is theories. So I hope Indonesian scholars understand why Indonesia supports the United Nations, and they ought to. It's very consistent with their culture. And Indonesia is now, the president is the president of ASEAN. And Indonesia, there's this problem between the US and China, which I really don't like. But the scholars can show that actually the virtues are the same. We should worry more about similarities than differences. And we shouldn't saber rattle. We shouldn't allow fear to drive us. That's how, the issue is courage. What is the threat and what's the best way to address it? And we're making a lot of really stupid mistakes. And Indonesia and the ASEAN countries should not, get used as a proxy for a bigger war. But this is standard stuff. I mean, history is full of things like this. It's just that, why can't we learn from history? We should really be working with China on trade, on developing technology. We shouldn't be competing against China and protectionism and all that. We just really need to work on climate change and work together. But we just don't seem to be learning the lessons. But Indonesians can step up and just tell the truth.
Okay, thank you, Beck, for the explanations about how the connectivity between ancient Greek and our life together these years. And somehow we have the value that we already come up from the past to now and the future directions of our life. Somehow we still have the tradition of the Greek. Yeah, we have Olympic right now, and then somehow even that we are going to Istanbul or Turkey, that we can still see how the the culture from the past to the future directions. One more things, actually, the frequent discussion between intercultural dialogue or interfaith dialogue will maintain our understanding together to the topic or any kind of another view from the other cultures. Again and again, thank you, Prof. Beck, and see you next week,
Yeah,
face-to-face meeting.
I did want to point out that in the history of the Middle East,
Sure.
Aristotle, Alexander brought Aristotle and Greek learning, the Galen and the scientists, the doctors, he brought all that knowledge, and then people in the Mideast improved on it. And there are histories now about the lost history of what they did with the Greeks. They got inspired, but they went beyond it, and they were all Muslims. So there's just a lot. There's a lot to work from.
Yeah, I do agree that what that we have right now, there is a connectivity between Islam and the Greek, since the philosophy from the Greek, it come up with the translation to the Arabic, and then there is a discourse in Islamic word after. But hopefully in the next discussion, we can see this connectivity between Greek and Islam for another topic. Again and again, thank you, Beck, for your kind time that you can come up with the idea, and hopefully that we can see you next week face-to-face meeting in Jakarta.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
and have a good evening and have a nice dream. See you soon.